Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this lovely world on your own screen and in our show. You are at the right place. You have chosen wisely because we have our famous family like AR panel again in the starting of the new year. And we would like to learn about AR in times of artificial intelligence. Did it change things at all? Let's ask our professionals. Unfortunately, we have some more time for two of our well known guests, as two have to take care for themselves and their beloved ones. So we wish them all the best from this end. And I would like to give the floor to Trish to introduce herself and afterwards give Ludovic an opportunity to introduce himself.
Thanks, Ralph. I'm happy to be here as usual. I always enjoy our conversations. My name is Trish Harmon. I work on the analyst relations team at SAP. I've been at SAP for a very long time and doing analyst relations for even a little bit longer. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for being with us.
We are grateful.
Hi, I'm Ludovic, and I run Starsight Analyst Relations. We're a boutique analyst relations firm. I'm also on the board of the Institute of Industry Analyst Relations in my spare time, the IAR. I'm always happy to have a really nice chat with you guys.
Fantastic. And we are grateful that you are with us, as well as you two have different roles, such as you are in the multi-vendor perspective, Ludovic, and Trish has these three lovely letters, which have a worldwide known reputation. And the challenge is, under normal circumstances, that I would have a starting question. How did you start into your year? So with that AI thingy above us and influencing us, I recall one of the statements from Trish from one of our last sessions. And can you believe that we have now CRM Convo number 287 already?
Wow.
And that our analyst relations panel is, if I'm not miscounting, for the fifth time. So that how did over the last working periods the framework in your company change for the allowance to utilize artificial intelligence for your work?
Well, it probably comes as no surprise, given the attention on AI that, we are also encouraged to adopt it in our day-to-day work, SAP Joule, as well as, other platforms as appropriate. So it's definitely shifted, in the last 6 months or in the last year. It's crazy. I think how much, I think just even in your personal life, right, how much you're using AI. Although I am trying to be aware of it, just given the environmental aspects. I'll be honest there. I do think about that, whether I need to use it or not. But that withstanding, yeah, definitely it's shifted. I think more towards, becoming a kind of a part of our day-to-day jobs versus maybe just, 6 months ago it was, oh yeah, maybe I could do that. So yeah, definitely encouraged to use it as much as we can at SAP.
How do you use Joule?
You yourself.
Here.
Yeah,
And
so
being an analyst, how can I fake it?
yeah, so we have it kind of embedded in some of our work streams right now, so able to take advantage of that. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it helps, they're kind of simple things too, right? For me, a lot of times it's I like to use it for note taking. I'm admittedly not a great note taker when I'm on conversations, so it's nice to, and sometimes when you're taking notes, I'm sure you find this out too, is it your attention is on taking notes and not always on the conversation that you're having with people. So that's been a really nice thing for, I think, a lot of us in any roles, especially AR, is to kind of capture those notes and then go back and kind of look at those and make sure you've got the action items captured properly, or even quotes and things that people say where you want to take something back to a leader that says, well, I heard this from Thomas yesterday. It's nice for that. So that, that is probably most basic, I think, for all of us how we use it. But that's been I guess a nice treat for me because, like I said, admittedly, I'm not a great note taker.
It's very
That
valuable.
makes the two of us, by the way.
Ludovic,
Ludovic.
you're never quiet.
Yeah. So as far as we are concerned, I think the same thing, Trish, right? The unique problem we have is that we have multiple clients,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to make sure that their IP is not exposed. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the privacy aspect that I'm very, very careful about. So at the moment, we use it in a very ring fence environment. The notes taking, I think, is really, really good. The transcription has been very, very good. The translation, when you operate in a multilingual environment like Starsight does, is very, very good. Sometimes you have to have always a human in the loop. You have to be really, really careful for two reasons. Number one, if you ask questions on summarizing reports or finding the pros and cons in a report, I've seen what was it? I think it was ChatGPT hallucinating and giving me things that were plausible but not in the report. So that's an issue that you have to be aware of. The writing, generating text is also quite good. You have to be very specific with a prompt, and that gets you have to work a lot on the prompts, and I think it's something that it's a muscle that you need to develop and exercise with making sure that the outputs are not too verbose. ChatGPT tends to be very verbose, Perplexity less so, and so on. So you need to be
Like Gemini,
making sure that
Gemini, if you're talking
Yeah.
about verbals.
But I agree, Ludovic. The prompt writing is really key. This morning I was summarizing something and I asked to capture key quote, and I only wrote the word quote. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
write quotes, and I had wanted to get multiple quotes back from what I was doing, and it literally provided me one. And I went back to look at my prompt, and it was because I had put the word quote singular. So just little things that it's very literal that I think we'll all get better at as time goes on. But yeah, Ludovic, I completely agree with the prompt writing is important.
Making the whole thing a bit more generic. I mean, generative AI and agents are what they are. We are using them as parts of our workflows. But what I really like to get into is AR or not, AI or not. Definitely AR. Looking at 2024, in 2024, you learned a bunch of things, like everybody else. In particular about events and analyst relations in your roles. So, and what I'd be interested in is in how far you and which of those learnings you incorporated into your work and into preparing and executing events in 2025.
Ludovic?
Events specifically?
Well, AR events, briefings, analyst days, and analyst conventions, even customer events that may or may not include analysts.
I don't know. I've been doing events for like 25 years. I think it's one thing that hasn't changed a lot. You need to be fun, be a good host, shorten the segments, provide insights, make sure people connect. And in being a good host, it's simply making sure that you have power strips, Wi-Fi. So you go through the Maslow pyramid, right? Are people there? Transportation. Are they fed? Do they have Wi-Fi? And then do they have the information they need? It's the analyst relations Maslow pyramid. You can I've experienced so many formats, putting the customers at the beginning, putting the CEO at the beginning, putting customers last, and having demos, show floors, combining it with customer events, doing analyst relation events separately, and all that. I've done very large scale events, like hundreds of analysts. I'm very fond of small scale events. We've done a small scale event on the side of a customer event last year. We're working another one next month, and we'll have about 10 analysts around the table. When you make, I think the key thing is to make this a safe space. And
Mhm.
bridging back to the AI subject, I just realized last month that Generation Z behave as is everything. Everything is recorded. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket. It's called a mobile phone. Everybody can record things all the time. So my kids are extremely conscious about everything they do. I think it's a shame. I think it removes spontaneity. It removes goofiness. It removes any kind of silly things that make you grow up into a probably half-functioning adult sometimes. And I think that's a bit of a shame. They don't do stupid things. So stupid things. I mean, evidence is there is that they have less relationships, less close relationships. They live in a self-reinforcing bubble more. They're very, very careful and guarded. They engage in less contradictory debate on politics, and it's a world that we're in. When you bring back physical events, you don't record it on purpose. You make it safe. You bring back that spontaneity. You bring back those point of views, and if you encourage it by hosting, moderating, what we were doing all along, we're back into a place where you can have really, really interesting conversations. All the rest, this call is recorded, every briefing is recorded all the time. I have analysts calling me back on WhatsApp saying, I don't know what my employer is going to say, but, and so I have analysts from various firms calling me back, say, here's what I really think. And that's a shame. So I think physical in-person events are the last refuge of spontaneity. Here you go. What do you
Yeah,
think,
I think
Trish?
too. I don't disagree with what you said. I think one of the things we've learned, and I would suspect if Sandy and Sarita were here, they would probably agree too. Is sometimes having as a vendor, sometimes just getting out of the way is also helpful. To not overscript things. To your point, Ludwig, to keep some things, have that spontaneity feel of things where it doesn't feel super scripted by the vendor. Analysts tend to really like that. I've worked with lots of analysts to get feedback on that. And I think that's been a key learning, a key takeaway for how we've kind of shifted since post-COVID is to kind of just open the doors a little bit. And we have to trust the relationships we built with our analysts and with our executives to kind of have some of these conversations, and even our customers in some case. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that that resonated that you said, Ludovic, is that. And I didn't think about some of the other stuff in terms of the carefulness and, luckily I went to college at a time where there's no phones and didn't have to worry about, that kind of stuff being recorded when I was in my early 20s. So, yeah.
We surprisingly, we got an analyst as a guest in here.
Oh, and it's a good one too, I see.
And a good one, yeah. Let's make sure that he doesn't blush.
I don't think he blushes.
So he snarked a bit, so who would have thought that power strips are Wi-Fi now on Maslow's hierarchy of needs? You using that
You'd be surprised at some events, I think, where some of these things, I mean, it sounds simple, but Ludovic is right. Like, just sometimes the simple needs need to be met to keep anybody happy.
When you go to an analyst event, you go to an analyst conference, there's no power strips, and then yet they bitch when there's no power strip at our events, and we go like, yeah, it's there.
They could go for more modern laptops that last more than an hour or two, but snarking here. But so if I interpret that right now, you consider this kind of the base layers of Maslow's pyramid. What are topics that you consider on the higher levels? I mean, Maslow has 4, 5.
Well, first the pyramid goes as in, are you safe? So Is your plane arriving? Are you know,
No.
taxi arriving? Are you getting there safely? Do you have a hotel room and that
I have a
kind of
place to
stuff?
stay. Yeah. Are they going to
Still
feed
Okay,
me? Are
so
they going to, are they going to feed me if I have dietary restrictions? Are they going to feed me in the way that I need to
yeah,
be fed too is important.
the second layer is food, right? So you have safety, you know, you have a cave, then you have like nutrition, and then Trish says right, you know, you have loads of people who, for many reasons, have got different dietary requirements and all kind of like wishes. And then the next ones are what do they need to do their work? What information do they need to do their work? What is the actual reason of being there?
Yeah.
And then you have self-actualization. You know, how can they express themselves in a safe way to get a point of view, be respected, be seen as a thought leader, and all that. It's all the psychology of that. So self-actualization is the last layer of the Maslow pyramid.
And in how far did different topics meander through the various layers of this pyramid, or which ones got added to the pyramid in the recent years, in your views?
I don't think many. I mean, it depends. So the third layer is basically, do I have enough to kind of like be successful in whatever that means, get money and that kind of things. So what is the objective of the job? So one analyst got there. Some analysts want information so that they can deal with end users. Some analysts want information so that they can write something. I've seen things being much more immediate, and very often analysts want to do a blog, where 15 years ago that was not really a thing. So it's much more immediate, but they're still craving unique under NDA information that
Yeah, I
actually
think
will position
access,
them
right?
as leaders. Access, exactly.
Right. I mean, actually had to pull up I had to Google the hierarchy of needs because I did not come prepared to
Well, that was a new one.
yeah, I did not come prepared to put AR but there are definitely some synergies I can think. The one towards the top is self-esteem, and I think that, kind of ties back to making sure to what Ludovic just said, to making sure the analysts get kind of what they need, because everyone has different, different takeaways that they're looking to get from anything, right?
Yep.
From an event, from a conversation, from an update, but trying to meet the analysts where they're at with what they need. And that comes
And
with,
it's all,
that's why I think if we tie it back to AR, I think if we come back to that, that's why, I hope AR will never take away our jobs, because that's our job as an AR pro, is to kind of understand what each individual unique needs are of the people we work with, and try to make sure we're meeting them where they're at.
I agree with the earlier statement from Ludovic that there needs to be a human in the loop. And it's one of your earlier statements as well, Trish, when you recall that I asked you provocatively what has changed in your work environment, because I recall very much that you told us in one of the earlier sessions, yeah, well, I work for a German company, they are very GDPR focused. So I have a little book, what I'm allowed to do and not to do. So this seemed as a framework to have loosened up a bit, as long as you utilize your own stuff.
As long as we're following, like we have an internal
Rules.
playground, all of that
Okay.
kind of stuff, right? So we're
Yeah.
we're held to very
And-
high, standards
yeah,
here, which is one of the things I love about SAP, right? So
which
so
is
all of those things have to. I don't go out to ChatGPT
yeah.
and do any
What
work.
I do recall as well is that there are always some differences in large shows where you are tasked as analyst relations folks also to take care of some, let's say, snugged in journalists, or
Mhm.
that they have more or less not clear role being a journalist, a blogger, and an analyst, and that it is sometimes a bit tricky, whereas the analyst does perfectly understand NDA is NDA or you get shot. on whereas some journalists are digging for the diamonds or some stuff they can share before others. How do you handle these tricky challenge to give them some pearls, some little stuff and snacks, but keep them away from being frustrated, and on the other end, not getting your event or your role as keeping the secret under the hood and manage this tryst?
So I can think of a couple of people that probably fit the description you were talking about. I won't name names, but I think it comes back to, I think some of the stuff we've all just said is understanding their needs. And sometimes maybe those needs are met, maybe in a different environment. Maybe it's a conversation we set up for them to have outside of the core event. Maybe it's we help them navigate some customer conversations. I also think it's about the relationships, right? We have these good relationships with some of these folks, and they kind of have this mutual understanding. It's the give and get, right? Like, you know I know you're trying to write this or do this. How can I help you accomplish that? And then how can you in turn kind of respect what I need respected in terms of keeping things under embargo until a certain amount of time or things like that. So I think it just comes, with that respect that flows both ways between, the vendor and the other. Oh, we lost Ludwig. I think that just comes with that respect that we've developed over the years with a lot of these folks that may fit that description. So truthfully, I think it's not as hard to navigate as you might expect, if you have strong relationships in place, and you're working with, the people that I'm thinking of are just good humans, that come to mind that that fit the descriptor you said before. So it's not as hard as you would think, in my particular opinion.
Lovely. Good to hear this. Ludwig, what is your take on this? And having recalled that you have been one of us in earlier times, being an analyst as well, and now have changed, let's say, the side of the table a bit and have the perspective, what did my former colleagues need to be successful? And at the speed of light with prepared kits and all this, what SAP probably is knowing as well, and is delivering. The old days when I was more traveling, I was always positively overwhelmed what I got on information packs. So what is your take, Ludovic, on that twist and how you manage and the relationship?
I think there's two things, right? The problem in analyst relations is not so much the analysts usually, because we know what they want. It's pretty simple. We just ask them and tell us. And sure, you have analysts who have the point of views, and you might disagree with them. That's fine. The main problem doing events specifically is to work with stakeholders, right? To make sure that they understand the impact of what they're saying, and to make sure that they help analysts accordingly. So I don't think there is usually big secrets, but there are things that taken out of context can be dangerous. So our main job is two things in terms of AR when preparing for those events. Is number one, or three things. Number one, making sure that the content is actually useful to analysts and is not just regurgitation of marketing slop. Number two is to make sure that stakeholders have the right expectations and also happy to engage with analysts that might disagree with them. And yes, some analysts might think that the product that our clients or our employers are doing is not the best, and that's disappointing to when analysts call our babies ugly, right? So We just need to be ready for that and ready to understand why they say that, where they come from, and how to deal with it. And then the third thing is to figure out what are the rules of engagement and how to keep things within context. So if you're a listed company, obviously you don't want to go too deep into financials. You want to make sure that people understand what material information is. And also, there are some things which may be important at the moment, but transient for the analyst that is unnecessary context because it doesn't come with in the greater picture. So that's how we prepare for things and how we help analysts. I don't know if that answers the question.
It is partly answering the question as it was held open, and I was curious on um, the different approaches to managers. So what we learned over the last panels and today again, relationship is key to trust, and key to build and deliver the right stuff, such as to make your customers, analysts in this case, happy and smile, and give them an opportunity to be caught at their best. No? And that I take out of this as well.
In the context of all this, so and yes, it answered. So John and Tim have an interesting discussion here. So let me bring that in one after the other, and then we should discuss that a little, because it's quite interesting. So we came from how to use AI. Yeah? So from it of course can expose our mediocrity, not mediocrity. And with that, if we take that challenge, like John, enhance our insights or enhance our thinking. Why and how? By basically, well, avoiding AR research and using it to challenge our own thinking. Yeah, so you have an argument, and then, hey, ChatGPT, find me some counter arguments. Yeah, so Tim responds to one of the earlier ones with, well, and that's the real key is in how far can we use technology, and there I'm going beyond AI, technology, and how we are pushing the envelope beyond basics, right? So AR teams as well as analysts, we need to ask ourselves, how do we increase value or increasingly create value for customers, yours and ours? Because I mean, most of us work on both shoulders and work for the buyer side as well, give advice there as well, and bring the learnings from there back to the vendor side. So how, and that's the basic question is here, how can we jointly increase value generation, value creation using technology? Stunned silence. I mean, we are way off script here, of course, acknowledging that we are barely scripting usually.
But value generation for who? And what is the measure of value?
Well, put yourself into the analyst relations pro seat, and well, the company you work with has customers, and our joint work is about increasing value for them by making sure that they get what they need, using their feedback and using the independent feedback that comes via analysts, so that analyst relations can bring that back into, well, the analyst, well, the organization, via direct feedback given by us or via indirect feedback given through you. So how can we use technology to increase the value that we generate, apart from avoiding AI slop? what's your strategy, or what tactics do you pursue to get there?
I think for analysts, AI can be great because you can research many things very, very quickly and identify more players.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see some companies restricting their landmark evaluation methodologies from 4 bands to 3 bands, therefore missing out all the innovative players, and I'm not naming names there, but you might guess which major player that is, then you leave out a lot of small vendors who are innovating. And I feel that's a disservice to the community in general, to the industry in general, because it doesn't allow big companies to pick acquisition targets. It doesn't allow innovative technologies to come to the fore, and so on. And I think AI is a good. So when you do an evaluation, you would limit number of players because otherwise it's unmanageable. But AI can help screening many more vendors, and there are analysts specifically in security, thinking about Richard's student at IT Harvest, curating a large database of technologies and vendors. So that's, I think, adding a lot of value. Being quicker on event recaps, you can record a whole event and query the event. I think if you do it smartly, that's really, really good. But there are problems with that. So one analyst told me that a vendor has filled in an AI, filled in an evaluation RFI with AI, and then they mark the evaluation and they said, well, hang on, you do this, but we thought you didn't do that. And then the vendor has used AI, and AI assumed that was true for one part of the business, was true also for the rest of the business, and then therefore filled in incorrectly an RFI. That can be hugely problematic, that can be career limiting, that can be misleading. And similarly, for analysts, I've been on the phone with analysts and we said, well, that was in the demo, that was in the RFI, and quite clearly the analyst hadn't read that, but used AI to pass through the RFI and the demo.
Mhm.
And you have to be really, really careful. AI can speed things, but if you fast forward anything, I think you'll miss the weak signals, you'll miss the things. So you need to be smart on how you use AI. And I think AI will, I'd say, segment or crystallize the difference between lazy people using AI and smart people using AI. And you can see that on LinkedIn. You have a lot of people posting a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, really long text about the fact that they are on holidays and they got great ideas and blah, blah, blah. And nobody cares about that. It's AI generated, it's obvious. And you have a few people sometimes posting on LinkedIn really interesting stuff, and they get drowned into the noise. So AI will increase the noise, and people will ultimately turn over to fewer sources of authority. And that will, I think, take a long time to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's my view on it.
Cool.
What would you say, Trish?
I'm honestly not sure where to go with with that. I mean, I don't
with honesty,
yeah,
respecting the boundaries given by any employer, as
yeah,
usual.
yeah. I think we're starting to see some of what Ludovic is saying, across the board in terms of, AI being more prevalent in surveys and things like that, filling out that kind of stuff. But no, I think, I love some of the conversations that are having on the side in terms about,
Mhm.
you know, about ultimately, it's all about the customers, right? And our job in AR is, and I think this is non-technology dependent, is to make sure that we are developing these bi-directional relationships with our analysts to make sure our customers ultimately are getting the best news, right? I view oftentimes the analysts I work with as is kind of an extension of our sales force, right? If you're doing your job, when customers are confused or want the true story, a lot of times they'll go to an analyst to get that. If they don't
Mm.
get the answers they want from a vendor, they'll go to the analyst. So, my job is to make sure that they're educated and have the most
Yeah.
up-to-date information on whatever it is I need to make sure they're updated on, whether it's a product, a strategy, a new offering, a partnership, something, so that they can talk to our customers, because they tend to be trusted advisors to our customers. So,
Mm.
If you
and
do
that
20
is
plus,
not AI related, I don't think.
if you do 20 plus years in events, Ludovic, and same will happen to you, Trish, in different roles, being a long time employee of SAP in different roles, um, you have had your own checklists. You have your own experiences.
Mhm.
Is AI adding value in the day-to-day work still, in getting you not only the hint on the change in the Maslow pyramid, um, hierarchy pyramid, and needs pyramid, and delivering some more extra stuff? Because I was wondering if these time thieves, such to make the checklist and all that, it's inside your head and also in writing. So you go through it, such as, is it helping anyhow to organize that nasty stuff a bit?
And adding on, before you answer, Trish, and adding on what to this question, the hint that John just gives, so it can help and it can do a lot of stuff, but what can't technology help with? So I
Yeah.
don't want to bring that on screen because it blocks the whole screen potentially.
I think, I think, Ralph, some of the things that I think it helps that I've found is, when I'm pressed for time, I think it's,
Yeah.
and this isn't always great over like the day of news, like, if there's news that hits it, if you have a good prompt written, you can have it summarize a lot of news about maybe if if you're announcing a new release or a new partnership, or somebody had earnings, right? That's really nice to like go through and submit your earnings transcript and have it
Mhm.
summarize your earning transcripts. I think those are really big time saving things for us. The other thing I think it's nice is to summarize for an executive, right? Or put this in, provide me 3 bullets. Those types of things are really helpful. I've found for my day-to-day jobs is that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So those are kind of little things I think are helpful, and you can also have it like summarize a piece of research, right? If you guys write a piece of research, I can throw it through and say, can you summarize this, give me the top 3 takeaways from this piece of research. So I think those are some, simple ways that it's helped day to day for me, and that, stays within, how we use AI internally here.
Yeah. Lovely. Anything to add, Ludovic?
Especially on the negative
I
side.
well,
That-
I mentioned earlier my point, but I tried to summarize research and sent it to a client, and the client said, "Oh, that's not in the report." And I thought, so you have to be quite careful with it.
Yeah.
And I see John and team in the comments making points about the fact it's all about relationship. I think we can scale AR programs and help more people better, and that's cool. That's really really
Mhm.
great. Um, Question one has to ask is, what do you do then? And I think what you do then is to try to create those spaces outside of technology, those safe havens to have conversations which are where analysts can challenge execs. And yeah, you have a lot of execs who don't like their babies to be called ugly. And you have to let that happen in a way where it is really safe and moderated. And if that's the case, I think it's a huge service. My clients tell me that is the main value. The problem AR has is that we struggle to put a number on it. So everyone's looking at sales influence,
yeah.
which is very hard to measure. And very often people drawing long lists and technical architectures and all that, they're not visible to vendors. They're in the basement looking at different solutions, and they read analyst reports, but they might not talk to analysts. So measuring AR is a big problem. If you have the attention of senior management, then you can do great things because they don't mind being challenged. I find that it's the middle level which is more insecure.
Important aspect. Interesting.
Define middle layer.
Well, in general, senior to or middle management.
Okay.
Because
So
they're getting the first weight, right? Where senior management can make calls, so they feel less insecure because they have some agency over things.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting back to the safe space, so this is probably going both directions. So, and Trish said that analysts are, well, that she wants to, well, I transcribe this a little, Trish, yeah? That you'd like to see analysts as trusted advisors to your customers, or at least acknowledge that they often are.
I think they often are. Yeah, I don't think that's a stretch.
So now let me challenge that thought in general a little. Yes, it needs a safe space. Yes, it needs, or two thoughts. Yes, it needs trust, bidirectional trust. Yet many execs don't like criticism, founded or not. So, well, basically, it comes with an argument usually. So this is not good because, or you could do better because, which in my experience, a lot of execs don't really like to hear. Yeah. So, and hence they don't hear it because the next event happens without you. And then you're out of the loop. So this is part one. And part two is during events, you rarely, very rarely hear something about this is what we don't do or can't do. So these are the limits of what we can do. So how can then the analyst be a trusted advisor to a customer? If, well, first of all, the feedback that regularly comes from customers is kind of blocked out. And secondly, the limits of vendor offering are not really shared. How does that jive? Or how can we improve on that?
On which side? On the customer side or the vendor side?
On vendor and analyst side.
Yeah, I mean,
so that the result needs to be there for the customer. That we fully agree. But this means that, well, the safe space needs to be there for analysts as well as for execs to, well, be open.
so I've witnessed this happen a lot, and I think it comes back to there's a reason the word relations is in the title of my job. It's all about the relationships that we build, and I think yeah, you're right. There are some executives that probably don't like feedback, but I think if you have a strong relationship with an analyst and you loop them in early and often, and they look at that analyst as a trusted advisor, then I think it's not always perceived as like negative feedback. I think it's just perceived as feedback, and I think that's a little different. So I think, sometimes I think where you see it maybe bubble up where it gets to be, to use your phrase, my baby's ugly kind of thing. I think it just comes from kind of these random conversations that an executive may not kind of understand the background or the context of why an analyst may be saying it, because they don't have this developed relationship versus someone that they've been talking to on a regular basis, that they've been iterating this idea through, for a longer period of time. So it just becomes this back and forth, I think. So, I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but I think I think it happens more often than than maybe we realize it happening. But I think it's comes back to the relationships, you as an AR person has helped foster with your senior leaders, with these trusted advisors that they have. And most of them don't have the bandwidth to develop them with 7 or 8 people, but a lot of times most senior executives that I've worked with in my career have good relationships with, with a small number of them that they kind of lean into and say, hey, I'd like to get so and so's feedback, or when so and so reaches out, they're happy to take that call. So I think it's all tied back to that relationship that you've helped develop with your leaders and that outside expert.
As Ludovic has to run, we would love to give him an opportunity to do his little bit of famous last words before he is leaving. As you said something on the metrics.
Metric is the $1 million question, literally, for analyst relations. And I've always been a proponent that if you can get away with not measuring, then it's better. The danger of not measuring is that if the stakeholder change, then you need to re-educate again. So it's also a risk. But to people who say they can measure the value and everything, on the impact on sales, the impact on revenue, the impact on that, I think it's like with everything, with marketing. I always have a discussion with CEOs and they tell me, yeah, but the marketing that event brought me that much money and MQL brought me that much money. And I always challenge them on how much, what is their attribution model like? How much the event accounts for within the buying process? Is it 60%, 90%? Are they measuring only the last touch, the first touch? And you'll find that B2B are, with some exceptions, are very unsophisticated. They only measure one touch point within the whole buying process. And with that in mind, asking AR to justify value based on a pretense that marketing can measure MQLs is false, because marketing cannot measure MQLs. Just I'm taking an event as an example. Who's invited clients to an event? Sales reps. Are they getting credit for it? No, they're not. Marketing is. So I think we should, give AR a break. We know that analysts do a huge amount of brand simply because they're usually the first ones to talk about weak signals, and they give really, really good advice. And to my mind, analyst relations is an insurance policy. You can choose not to do it, but if your product to market fit is bad, don't complain about it. It's because you haven't listened to analysts. Usually, they're not always right, but they're pretty much on the money. That's where I'd leave you on the value of analysts before I need to run, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, very unfortunately. So
Thanks very much that you shared some of your observations, wisdom, and own experience with us. Thank you, Ludovic.
Thanks,
guys. Bye.
by Ludovic, which makes you the last one standing, Trish.
I know. I think I'm nervous.
The story about one of these famous westerns, The Last Mohican, the last survivor of an Indian tribe.
So. Yeah.
Or the last one standing, yeah.
And it is very interesting as I see the development in analyst relation driven events, in size, in opportunity to meet executives. I recall a very famous one from SAP in 2007, when there was still Jim Hagemann Snape, Henning Hagemann, Shai Agassi, and you had them all at the table, touch, feel, have them at breakfast, have them for lunch, have them for dinner. And this was one of these spectacular events, because nowadays we have them on the screen. We can discuss with them, moderated or non-moderated. But at that, let's say, having seen Henning Hagemann with his little suitcase bag, old-fashioned, worn out of leather, and his more like a lecturer attitude, and then having him at breakfast completely relaxed, talking about the weather, his kids, his life, his wife, and then knowing that this is not the typical Henning Kagermann you get
Yeah.
in the show. Yeah. And also seeing that that kind of relaxation is coming, if you go to 2025, more or less either a standard because you have helped your bosses and mid-sized managers or manager be open, be honest, be authentic. Yeah, this is
Well,
something.
I mean, yeah, don't you think that comes from just, uncertainty, right? I think you're more confident and more open when you're a little bit more certain. And I think if you continue to have, when you put your executives in front of an audience that they maybe 75% know everybody in the room, they're way more open, way more engaging than they might be if they've only met two or three of them. So I think, I've seen that definitely over the years, and it's come just from, watching a new executive kind of, that had maybe just new to the organization, and they hadn't had these relationships before, and you just kind of watch them grow and blossom into kind of having different types of conversations maybe than they had 2 years prior. So I think, that's probably what you saw back then was, I was I think I was at SAP back. Well, yeah, sort of. I
Win
was
Las
back then.
Vegas. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that was.
I wasn't at the event, but I can imagine what it was like just based on other events. So yeah, I mean, I think it just comes from, and my guess is, I think it's the same with any executive, non-SAP, SAP is, when they're in a room full of folks they're comfortable with, it changes.
How can you create this comfort and certainty from your end for your colleagues and also for your guests, the analysts, the journalists?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of times it's just making sure, we are working with our executives to find the times to
Mhm.
commit to analysts, right? Because, priorities oftentimes fall with customers, and they're, that's who you want your executives talking to, is your customers. But, it's also kind of making sure you kind of, make sure their office understands the importance of working with this, this other type of a customer, I'll say, an analyst. So I think it's just making sure that um, there's that consistency in the relationship that's there, and which is not always easy to do, because conflicting priorities, right?
Ludovic, a minute ago, well, just before he left, said something quite interesting that John, who I also don't want to put on again because his comments are quite longish today, disagrees with. And I don't know whether to agree or disagree, actually. So this is the matrix point. So if you can do without measuring it, you should do. So what is your stance on the topics of matrix? Where and when should one stop using them? Or
Yeah, metrics are, I think, the beginning of any AR pro's existence, right? Because I mean, how do you measure relationships, right? How do you measure when you've had an executive that hung up a phone call with an analyst that IMs you afterwards and says that was really helpful? Like, how do you measure those kind of things? How do you measure when you've written a report and you've successfully softened a word or gotten a word removed? Like, how do you measure those types of things? And do you measure number of interactions, number of touch points, number of briefings, number of inquiries? Um, because, you know, colleague A does 22 and colleague B does 2. Does that make colleague A better than colleague B or more successful than colleague B? I think it's just metrics are really hard, I think, in our world because of the nature of the job. I mean, I understand there are needs to measure things, but um, I never want to be KPI'd on like the number of analyst interactions I have, because sometimes you're in the middle of certain things, or
Yeah,
you're in the middle of an acquisition and you can't talk to the analyst, or you're in the middle of an event season and everyone's busy, or you're whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different situations, I think. So I
Mhm.
measuring is really, really hard. And anytime you ever had a manager that's, said, well, let's KPI on, number of inquiries or anything like that, I'm like out, because that's not how I want to define my program.
Hmm.
Lovely. And very honest. Thank you for that one.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly passionate in the metrics things. I mean, I think there are certain things you can measure and there's certain things you should measure. But I also think you have to be smart about how you measure those.
Yeah, and as you've seen, Tim agrees a lot as well. And
Right, like John said, you can measure, you can say, yeah, that was a great phone call, but I can't attribute, did that lead to pipeline, did that conversation that, or did a report that we purchased, or a third party white paper that we had written, yes, you can track some MLA, some of that stuff. It's hard. I wish Sandy and Sarita were here, because I'd love their perspective too on
that would
the
have
metrics
been.
thing.
How do we trust us as our family members? If we have you as a larger part of our families, to see so, and good friends and honest, talkative audience and experts, it is that, yes, we miss the two, but we love the opportunity that you had more time to exchange from your thoughts. And so are the questions which are running to my mind, such as last year's most shocking moment, not only in reflecting on your organization, but more or less that you can talk freely. What was your impact shock moment last business year?
Wow, it's hard to shock me at this point in my career, I'll be honest.
That is fantastic. You are a lucky one, and you go fast through the shock moment and come to a marvel moment. Where is your little rose, such as what was your positive diamond last business year? If you don't get shocked, you get positively surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I took on a new coverage area in the last year, so that's been fun for me. So it's fun to learn new things. That's the great thing about AR is, oftentimes we get opportunities to learn new things about the same business that we've worked for a while. So that's been fun. I think the other thing would be probably to kind of tie it back to what what we initially started this conversation about was AI. It's interesting to see how much AI has changed in a year from where I sat on, January 13th last year, to how much it's changed, just some of the little, like we said, some of the small day-to-day things that we do with it. It's definitely allowed me to scale the program in a little bit different way, because I have a little bit more time to do things that I may not have had a year ago.
Wow.
So that's, I think, another positive is that.
Yeah. Going into a wrap up, because the time is growing short now. So first, I want to do a shout out to whoever Dex Row 66 is. You guys are the first one who did not do a troll comment from Twitch. Thanks for that.
We highly appreciate this.
Thanks for that. So you reaffirmed my faith into, or well, increased my faith into Twitch. But we have 2026 now.
We are, yeah.
All of 13 days. Oh my God, the year's almost done. So what are, as famous last words for this session, what are you looking most forward to in 2026?
Well, I'm deep in planning, and I'm probably looking forward to seeing how we execute on the plan, I think. So I like my job. I love my job. I love what I do. So I'm just excited to keep doing what I do every day, and working with the smart people that I get to work with every day. So yeah, I mean, not many people get to say they enjoy what they do, and I'm feel fortunate that I am.
Okay. Thanks for
Thanks
that.
to folks like you and my friends in the comments here. John and Tim are. Like they work with folks, smart people like you all that challenge us, right? And that's good. I love to be challenged. I love to get the pushback, and you guys make us better.
Yeah, that's the intention.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
No, I know. I think anybody that thinks you're a pain in the neck probably has probably has a wrong view on things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it shouldn't be a pain in the neck, but it should be challenging.
Yes. Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Different perspectives.
The company that only wants yay sayers probably should just invest more into marketing. And well, as an analyst, we shouldn't focus on being naysayers, but on constructive feedback. That's probably the summary of it.
Yeah. Sometimes the naysaying is needed.
Yeah, but it should be constructive, not just like
yeah. Oh yeah, most of it.
Yeah. So that's okay. And
thanks for the time.
Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for overcoming your nervosity.
I'm good.
Nervosity. And I'd do a last one for Dexro. Feel good about it because that was praise.
Yeah. Honest.
Okay. Then.
Right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Thanks a lot, especially to John, Dexro, and Tim for their engaging conversation and participation. Really appreciate it. And see you next time when we are getting into other different topics that are exciting you and us, and hopefully also you, which in particular will be a view into mid-market CRM in manufacturing.
In manufacturing.
Yeah, with our dear friend Christian Wetcher, who has quite the history on consulting and vendor side. So that is probably going to be an interesting one, in particular since, well, I don't know of many CRM and CX vendors that ignore manufacturing. So that is prone to
Gentlemen, I got to run. I got to jump to my next call. Thank you for
hosting.
Here.
And
Bye.
we are going offline now. Bye.